222. Hey, hey. Hey, 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 hey. Liam. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hey, 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 hey. One, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, one, two. Hey, 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 hey. Test, test, test.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of Southwark Council Cabinet. I'm Councillor Kieran Williams, leader of the Council. I'm delighted to be holding this meeting here today at the Livesey Exchange. And we'll hear in a little while from Nicholas, who is, amongst many other members of the community, the founder of this organisation, and we'll talk more about this building. But I'm very proud to say this is something that's been delivered for the community here on the Old Kent Road as part of the changes that are happening along the Old Kent Road. With lots of hard work to get here by the community and ward councillors as well. A fantastic venue, a space for people to come together and meet, to start businesses and social enterprises, and really to provide a hub for people in this fantastic part of and historic part of our borough. Outside we have the Old Kent Road, which we recently was reconfirmed is an original Roman road as well, with some of the excavations that were found recently. Today, it's also important to say it is the beginning of Race Equality Week, and actually it's also LGBTQ+ month as well today, for February. And I'm very proud of the work that we've been doing here in Southwark together as a whole community to make sure that we are a community that stands up against all kinds of prejudice, against all kinds of racism and xenophobia, and against homophobia as well, and celebrates our fantastic, diverse community. We have a whole raft of very practical action that we've been working with our community to make sure that we are living up to that mantra. And whether that's our work we've been doing on making sure, working with the police to change policing and make sure that local policing respects all of our community, getting our LGBTQ+ and black community to challenge the police, actually to change their behaviour, and that's very practical action. Young black men sitting down with police officers and talking through to them how stop and search can be used in a way that is fair and proportionate. Whether it's the work we've been doing about leadership within our own council, we've made a firm commitment to make sure the top of the council's workforce is fully representative of our community here in Southwark by 2030, and we'll be talking about that date later on the agenda at 2030, and I'm really glad to say we're making real progress in doing that. And if I just look around the cabinet table, we've got the work that Councillor Akoto is doing on setting up a Black Elders Centre and tackling maternal health inequalities as well. There's the work Councillor Cryan has been doing, really championing the voice of our diverse voluntary sector, putting in place a leadership programme. I think we're in our 4th month now, are we, of the current leadership programme, as well as changes to funding and grants. I've already talked about the work around policing that Natasha's doing. I probably won't get right round the table, but there's much more I could say besides. Councillor Batterton over here doing work, really looking into how we can support people from our black community into businesses. Councillor Dennis leading the work to establish our fantastic LGBTQ+ cultural centre. So we mean it when we say these words. They're not just words, it's about action to challenge both the prejudices in our society and give people real opportunity. So I want to thank everyone for all of that work. Today we have a short but very important agenda, but before we get to that I want to introduce members of the Cabinet. I'm going to start at this end with Sarah. Just having a slight technical problem.
Hello. That one works. So it seems like this side seems to be working.
It's working now, I think. Yeah, I think that works, doesn't it? Yeah, okay, cool. Sorry for the delay. I'm Councillor Sarah King and I'm Cabinet Member for Council Homes.
Morning, I'm Councillor Helen Dennis. I'm the Cabinet Member for New Homes and Sustainable Development.
Councillor John Batterson, Cabinet Member for Climate Emergency, Jobs and Business.
Councillor Jasmine Ali, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Lead for Children, Education and Refugees.
Good morning, Councillor. I'm Councillor Evelyn Akoto, Cabinet Member for Health and Wellbeing.
Councillor Portia Mwanganje, Cabinet Member for Leisure Parks and Young People.
Morning, I'm Councillor Stephanie Cryan, Cabinet Member for Equalities, Democracy and Finance.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Natasha Ennin, and I'm the Cabinet Member for Community Safety and Neighbourhoods.
And Councillor James McCash will be joining us shortly, and if I also get officers at the front to introduce themselves as well, starting with Doreen.
Good morning, I'm Doreen Forrester-Brown, Assistant Chief Executive Governance and Assurance and the Council's Monitoring Officer.
Good morning, I'm Althea Lodgerick, the Council's Chief Executive.
Good morning, I'm Paula Thornton, Constitutional Team.
And for anyone who's coming up to speak during the meeting, please do introduce yourself when you come up to speak, and only come up when I've called you. And please do remember to use the microphone as we are, so people on the live stream can hear. We are live streaming today, so welcome to anyone who's watching live or indeed watching after the event. For those in the audience, please could I ask you to turn your mobile phones to silent. If you do need to take a call, could you step outside of the room to do that? We do allow filming at all council meetings, but if you do want to film anything, please can you be respectful for other members of the audience who may not themselves want to be filmed. So welcome again to today. As I work through the agenda, I want just to first say we don't have any apologies other than Councillor McCash joining in a little while. But we do have a couple of items of urgent business on the agenda today, so that is delivering Southwark 2030 and our Policy and Resources Strategy Medium-Term Financial Report. Papers of those are all now available. We have one item that we're planning to take in closed session. As I say, at all of these meetings, there are some items that we make decisions on not in public, and the reason for that is there are things where there's some confidential information. For instance, the amount of money we're willing to pay for a piece of land, so that the person, the organisation, the business that we're buying it from doesn't know the price that they can get us to pay, and we can get the best deal for the public purse. But we do everything transparently wherever we can, except for those kind of confidential items. Does any member of Cabinet have any disclosures of interest or dispensations that they would like, that they need to make today? No? In that case, can we agree the minutes of the meeting on the 7th of January? Agreed. And can I welcome Councillor McCash, who's just joined us. And before I go on to anything else, I also wanted just to hand over to Jasmine, as Deputy Leader, to say another small announcement.
I just wanted to mention that it's also Children's Mental Health Week, and I just wanted to give a nod really to some of the work that goes on in Southwark. I mean, you'll know that in 2018 we said that we would support 100% of children with mental health needs, and that's exactly what we're attempting to do. And we put 2 million into schools, and we've got so many initiatives supporting children, and we have our mental health drop-in. Obviously, in the spirit of Mental Health Week and in Southwark, we know that there is more to do, but I just thought we should mark Mental Health Week as well.
Thank you, Jasmine. Something that's really important for our community, we will talk later on when we talk about our Southwark 2030 strategy, about our real commitment to delivering improvements in mental health in the boroughs, a message that's come through really strongly as a priority for people across our community. So the next item I want to come to is the 2 deputation requests we've received today. First of all, I'd like to invite up Nicholas Akulu, who is the founder of Pen People, the driving force behind the building that we're in today, alongside many other members of the community, and a long-time activist and deliverer in our community. So Nicholas, if you would like to come up. And do use the microphone when you've had the chance to take a seat.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, councillors and cabinet members, leader of the council, and also the community. My name's Nicholas Okulu. I run Lives the Exchange, which is this building we're in. I'd also like to say a big thank you to the council for supporting this project. which has been built by the community for the community. And I think it just goes to show the power of the community here in Southwark. I came here 30 years ago, and I remember this was not the poshest of all places, but there was love, there was community, and there was also fellowship. You know, having worked in the pharmaceutical industry before migrating into community work, I remember looking at the stats of this area, and it showed that it was at about 15%. But as I said, we had community, we had fellowship, we had love. Fast forward to this day and age where we're in now, it's become a lot more difficult, not just for us, but also for many members in the community. The area has now become, sorry, I think I still get nervous every time I'm in front of politicians. That's a joke. The area's changed now. It's now become a much better place. And I'm going to say this, it's become a much better place statistically, because for many of us residents, we're still going through a lot of hardship. Developers are going through hardship with the cost of material, the cost of inflation, so you can just imagine what it's like for local residents. I'm proud of living in this area. I'm proud of living in this area, even though it has become a new opportunity area. But the point that I really want to say is about how can the council help local residents more. I'm not saying you're not helping them. How can we help them more, provide more opportunities? You know, we've got lots of developers, we've got lots of student accommodation coming in, but I'm not hearing local residents talking about opportunities that are coming from this opportunity area. I do understand it is difficult even for the developers themselves with the rising price, but also this is an area that lots of young people have grown up in and lived in. As somebody who has a 31-year-old daughter, she's also going through that same experience of trying to find, you know, actually trying to find a place, to the fact that she's actually thinking of moving out to Luton or Milton Keynes or Hemel Hempstead. Young people want to grow up in the area that they grew up in. She's lucky that she can afford to move to an area like, you know, outside the area. For a lot of people, they don't have that same chance. I'm not saying that the council have to provide these opportunities for local people, but we need to create a channel for them to go through and to see some of these opportunities that they might be able to go with. So, for example, with a lot of the student accommodation that's going on around here, how do we teach people how to become facility managers so they can look after the building, they can get good jobs where they can pay the rent? Because over the last 15 years, rent has increased quite exponentially, and that has a big knock-on effect in terms of how people grow up around in this area. As I said, I'm not here to criticise the council in terms of whatever decisions they do want to make and how they want to make them. What I do want to say is, please bear in mind local residents who don't see the opportunities, who are looking for those opportunities. I get to hear from many local people who often come to Livesey Exchange out of anger, and I have to show them that they have to follow policy and process. But sometimes that information is not easily available to them. And I think we need to find ways of how do we communicate that information to them so that they know what kind of opportunities they're looking for. I would also like you to also speak to some of the developers that are coming into the area. I think from my perspective, I would like to say they make a lot of promises which are not delivered afterwards. And I think it's really about opening up opportunities for local residents to work in some of these places. As I mentioned earlier this morning, just round the corner, we've just had a new business that's just opened. But that piece of property has been left vacant for the last 10 years. I remember when you had a cabinet member for social value, it was a conversation that we had. And that just goes to show how long that conversation's been ongoing. So, you know, how do we utilize more spaces? Because as local residents, we are losing spaces. We are losing places that we live and that we've loved and that we're used to. We do understand that things change. All I'm saying is if the council, developers, and anybody that's building can take into consideration that this is a fast-changing ward. And we also need to bear that in mind for local residents. That I'm not saying that we can't keep up with the speed, but we also need to be informed. We need to be told what's happening. And as you mentioned earlier, Kieran Williams, you mentioned about 2030. I'm not going to task the Labour Council to this because I don't want to be beholden to it, but I would like all of us to look back in 2030 and say, this is the journey that we've taken, this is what's happened, and these are the many stories that we can tell over and over and over again. I want a win-win situation, not just for the council, not just for the developers, but also for the local community. We have a very vibrant community here in Southwark, and I think given the opportunity to develop, we can all go for and make this one of the best wards. Actually, sorry, correction, it is the best ward, isn't it, Evelyn? Thank you. But we do want to make it an even better ward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicholas, and you very powerfully set out a message that we all mustn't forget. The change that's happening in Southwark is only successful if the people who live here, and particularly the people who are facing the hardest life, feel it makes it better for them. And I completely agree with you. As a council, our first priority in the work that's happening here in the Old Kent Road, where, as you say, a huge amount of change is happening, is deliver more homes that people can afford. And I might get Helen to come in and say a little bit about that. The line you said just before you closed about being able to look back and have the real stories of people's lives that have changed and the positive, I think that is exactly right. And I'm going to look at our team who are working on the work around Southwark 2030. We need to be able to evidence that that's what's happened. The strategy, we'll come to in a moment, is about creating good lives for everyone in our borough. We need to be able to show. It's beholden on us as a council, as a public authority, as an administration, to be able to show that there are real people's lives that are better, and that they're telling us that their lives are better. It's for them to judge, not us, and that's people who are facing the hardest times locally, and in particular, that's more important than anywhere here, because there is so much change happening for residents, and people can only reasonably put up with that if they can see what's in it for them, as you said. But let me bring in Helen as well to talk a bit more about the regeneration, and anyone else who's got any questions as well. Evelyn, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nicholas. And I suppose also to say congratulations on this building, because I know it's been like labour of love, you and the community kind of coming together to kind of build this space. And we're really looking forward to seeing the next building, the next phase delivered as well. So congratulations on that. And I think, you're aware of some of the discussions we've had around the Land Commission as well, and absolutely wanting to look at how we can enable more community activists, people to be able to kind of deliver these kinds of projects working in partnership with the council. So that is certainly an ambition and something we're wanting to see more of. I think we, as Councillor Williams has just said, we acknowledge that change can make people feel uneasy, and particularly rapid change. There can be that sense of disconnection. And so it is our job, working with people like yourselves, to kind of make sure that we lever as much public benefit as possible and that we connect people to that. I know that's part of kind of what you've been saying, and you're kind of challenging us to do more around. The vision for the Old Kent Road is absolutely about delivering for local residents. So yes, there are additional people coming in, it is additional homes, but it is also making sure that through everything that we're doing, we're building homes that are truly affordable and that people can access. Obviously, part of that is the quite significant investment the council's making at Ledbury and Tustin, but also through the development process, making sure that we're securing as much affordable, genuinely affordable housing as possible. And I'm really pleased, and we've talked about this previously, that to date we've got over 3,300 homes that are either built or on site, and over 50% of that is affordable. And I think whenever you do hear stories, and I heard one just last week of a family from a local school in Peckham moving into the Falgate site, you do hear those stories of people specifically benefiting from those new council homes, those new social rent homes, and that's really transformative for their lives. But we need to continue challenging developers to go further and holding them accountable. You're right to say that. And it isn't just about housing, it's also about the green spaces as well. So there's obviously a lot of investment that is going into Bramcote Park, for example, which is paid for by development, which is going to be on site this year in a few months. And also we're using, and I know you mentioned at the start that it's harder to access some pots of funding now, but there are other pots of funding that are coming on stream, particularly the Community Infrastructure Levy. And the local Community Infrastructure Levy, we've now accrued £2.6 million in the Old Kent Road ward, and I know your local councillors are kind of working through a process at the moment, identifying kind of priorities that the local community really support. I think Leighton Square, for example, is on that list, and a number of other projects, which I know will be really transformative. So that's the housing side, but also the kind of broader community infrastructure. We've set up, again, you're aware, the community review panel on the Old Kent Road, so really trying to mirror what we've had previously, the design review panel process, but enabling members of the community to get involved in discussions about a development at that pre-application stage, and that's something that I very much want to see replicated in other parts of the borough as well. And just to mention a couple of other things, we've got 231 Old Kent Roads, which will be opening soon as a new home for the Southwark Young Advisors, who obviously play an amazing role in the borough as well, like young leaders who are really kind of showing the way in terms of how they work with other young people and feed into our policy processes as well. In terms of transport infrastructure, you might have also seen that we've recently, just last week, with Transport for London, launched the consultation on the Baker Loop, the new bus, the express bus that will run down the Old Kent Road and like mirror the proposed Bakerloo line extension route. And that is being paid for in good part out of Section 106 contributions that have been collected through development in this borough. So again, really making sure that we're delivering for residents now and that we're enhancing the bus capacity and infrastructure to reflect the fact that we've got new people moving into the neighbourhood. So there is a lot going on, but it's not enough to rattle off a list, because I know what you're saying is that like people need to feel it and people need to be connected to those opportunities. So I think there is a challenge to take away for us to communicate better, to look at how we enhance the offer, connecting people into kind of jobs and skills opportunities through Southwark Works, the Construction Skills Centre. So as one example, Councillor Batterson last week was involved in launching our Hospitality Skills Hub. So again, trying to kind of connect people into the emerging opportunities that are emerging through the hospitality sector, but there are other sectors that we could look at as well. So thank you for your deputation. I think there's a lot for us to kind of think through, both substantively in terms of like how we deliver and hold others accountable for delivery, but also how we communicate and connect. So yeah, thank you very much.
Evelyn.
Thank you. And Helen has basically said a lot of the things I will say. First of all, I just want to say a huge thank you, Nicholas. I mean, since I've become a councillor, you have been always there, always prodding me, always pushing and making sure that we deliver for the community. As someone who lives close by, and I consider myself a local, I think when the regeneration was announced, my concern also was that we didn't want to run away and leave our residents behind. So I totally get your concerns about that. I mean, Helen has spoken about all the kind of benefits that regeneration is bringing in, but it's important that and as you say, the communication is going to be very important. I know we've set up the Old Kent Road website to keep people updated. We hold ward panels, community ward panels to be able to update residents. We talked about the capacity building elements of our residents, and it's something that I hope we can take forward. But I think what I do want to say that is also our passion as ward councillors, that we make sure that our residents truly benefit for what's happening in the area. And you know, with community workers like you and those who are there to speak for the community will be able to fulfill that. So thank you again for all the work that you do.
Thank you, Nicholas. And I'm going to specifically, one of the so in a moment we'll talk about the Southwark 2030 plan and how we're delivering it, which is about exactly what you're saying. It's about how do we achieve the change we need in our community for our community. But I think I specifically would ask, and Rona, who's our recently appointed Assistant Chief Executive, leading on that work, one of the things that we're doing is putting together how we're going to measure our success, an outcomes framework to measure our success. And I think if you could take directly Nicholas's points about that has to measure the actual change in people's lives, both the numbers, you know, how many more people are in work, how many more people have a home that they can afford, all the practical things, and people's their own story of whether that has been successful for them. So if we could do that, and I think if we could meet with Nicholas and other members of the community to talk about how we will do that, that would be greatly appreciated, Rona. She's nodding behind you. Is there anything you'd like to add, Nicholas?
No, that's it really. I think, you know, residents are seeing the changes that are happening, and as I said, I think it would be good if we can all sit and look back in 2030 to see the journey, where we've all been, some of the changes that are happening, and also, you know, just see some of the young people that are around here being able to turn around and say, guess what, I can either afford to buy a house around here or to live around here, even with the increase in rent. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest challenges, because obviously with more students coming along, it becomes a lot more challenging for a lot of the younger people. Actually, let me correct that, not just younger people, but for all residents in and around this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and really appreciate the deputation, and thank you again for hosting us this fantastic building and for your work making it happen.
Also, thank you for pushing Leighton Square as well.
We've got a second deputation request, and let me invite Saeedat up to speak to us as well. And Saeedat, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us about the many different hats that you wear working in the local community, and then speak to us.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Leader of Southwark, Deputy Leader, Chief Executive, Cabinet Member. It was a great pleasure to have me here today. I just signed out to today, a woman with different hats on my hair, facilitated almost 22 different charitable in Southwark, our school, our faith organization, and our community center. My home for having me today is just to give you the feedback from the residents. I want to use this particular moment to reflect and to highlight the incredible work that we've been doing at our community with the support of our exceptional and standing local councillor. It was a great pleasure from the resident perspective that we receive a lot of support for the over year. We call it Journey So Far. Firstly, when we're talking about the summer school holiday, there is a lot of problem for parents to take their kids to the holiday, especially BML. But with the support of our councillor, having that summer food and fun, winter food and fun, Easter food and fun, have already allowed our young people to stop, keep them off the streets rather than just making any violence, and then to keep them busy with the physical activities in all our center, including the school. We should think this is a particular positive feedback from the parents' perspective, especially lower income family. Ashley and Cooper TRA, where I'm the one of the secretary, now being elected as the treasurer, have been doing a fantastic job to keep all these young people off the streets with the support of the funding that we are receiving from the council. And we promote health and well-being in regard to the free meal, likewise the free school meal they are giving to them when they're at school. So now provide them during the holiday time. There is some different activity that we provide, dancing therapies, free sewing classes to empower these young people. And up to today, I can state that categorically we've already empowered almost 450 women from both BML and non-Africa heritage. We also promote Vita 5, which I think is a free health check. Thank you to Public Health and Health Watch and Community Southwark, with an exceptional ambassador on the ground doing outreach. This particular free health check have allowed many vulnerable women, our lonely women, our single, our senior leadership team, having that free health check in their doorstep. Including, we are talking, just mentioned about promoting mental health. PCRES with Islam are doing a fantastic awareness for mental health services, whereby we do some talking therapy within our school to allow these young people, after the COVID, there is a lot of mental health issues that affected our young people. Tackle food inequality. Thank you once again to our local councillor. Remind food fund that we give during the holiday period. Even up to this moment, there is a lot of distribution of food to the house, especially our senior people, disability people that are unable to just go and do any shopping. We also ensure that everyone in our community has access to the nutritional food that they need on their table. By doing this, it will allow us to promote health and well-being and to reduce the cancer that's really affecting many of our people now, that's getting them to die through the food that they consume. Additionally, our adult services. 2 weeks ago, the Girls and St. Thomas's and then Trust, including public health, supported some of our adults to pop in our center using the TRA center, using other faith organizations to promote health and well-being, including the suicidal, how to prevent, and then the cancer screening. The bowel cancer is going on now. We didn't have to raise that awareness to be able to prepare our mind, to prepare our people, to be able to prevention, because we believe prevention is better than cure. LGL also give us the opportunity to run the after-school club for our young people, to keep these vulnerable young people off the streets after the school hour. Family and events making difference with the neighborhood fund being received also from the Southwark Council. All the residents appreciate that, and we thank you. Faith Women community also empower women with free-flowing classes due to what's being received from the local authority. In the better, lastly but not the least, the bigger project now at this moment, which is Southwark Eat at the Park, which Southwark Muslim Forum using the opportunity to thank the local authority for giving us every little step as TESCO, so to support us with delivering these successful events, bringing community cohesion and break the barrier of hatred. A huge thank you once again to all our local councillors for their continuation support to make this initiative happen. Together, we believe we are building a stronger, better, and more supportive community for all. I think Nicola mentioned about 2030. 2030, what we think, myself and my team, is for us to apply a theory of change. Theory of change talk about the impact, the input, the outcome, and the impact of what we've already done. By doing this, it's allowed to reflect about what needs to be done, what we've already done, what we've already achieved. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, and you've set out an awful lot for us to take away there, which we will absolutely do too, but I'll ask Cabinet members to respond, perhaps not to everything, because you've covered a huge amount of ground there, but to some of those key points. Evelyn.
I must say, I am so proud to be Old Kent Road Councillor. You've seen or you've heard from two outstanding community members and residents, and I'm so proud of what all of you are doing. And so thank you, Saidat, for everything that you've said. I think for me, it's really great, I think for all of us, it's really great to hear the impact of what we are doing as a council. I mean, this is directly from residents, and you are telling us what they see or what they're feeling about our funding and what we are providing. So thank you for that feedback. I mean, we really treasure that, and we will take this away. I also want to thank you again. I mean, you are a person, I'm not sure how many of you know, Saidat wears so many hats. I don't even start listing them. But you do so much for the community. You give up your time, you give up your energy, and you are always there. So I want to also thank you for making sure that, you are at the forefront of some of these initiatives. You are pushing it. You are making sure that residents can access some of these benefits. So thank you very much for all that you do.
And I absolutely add my thanks to that. To hear that honest feedback of the things that are happening in the borough, what people appreciate, what we need to do more on, is hugely welcome. But actually, my thanks to you for the incredible work that you're doing, actually supporting people for our community and all of those things that you directly have been organising. Are there any other questions, points people would like to come in? Jasmine.
I just wanted to add my thanks as well, really. And I'm really pleased that today in the room is our Director of Children's Services. So hopefully after the meeting, or maybe during, you can meet one another, because we're about to relaunch our Family Hubs programme. And some of the things that you talked about, families and but older age children, well, young people, is that, we're capturing that really, and I'm very excited to talk to you about the relaunch of some of this work. We've got the Sure Start principles in our children and family centres, but we'll also have Sure Start for teenagers, and we've been going around the borough with that. So, very excited to talk to you, and I just wanted to add my thank you for being so tireless and to be active, not just in Old Kent Road, but also in Peckham. So thank you for that.
And Natasha.
I want to echo similar sentiments. Of course, Old Kent Road is the best, because I live here as well. But Saidat, I want to say a special thank you for all the work you've done for violence against women and girls, the activeness in turning up at all of the events around policing and crime and being willing to work with the Met. I'd like to say a special thank you to Nicholas as well, because he doesn't only say things, he actually leads by example. In 2017, I had done numerous projects across different parts of London, and Nicholas had invested time in me. And he said to me, "What do you want to do, Natasha?" At that time, I was in his building, Pen People. And I said, after seeing Evelyn, Richard, and Michael, I think I want to be a councillor. And I wrote it down in one of my diaries. And lo and behold, in 5 years' time, I was exactly that. So thank you very much to Pen People for the fantastic work that you do, because it is really about empowering people. But I also want to say thank you to the Old Kent Road community for being a vibe.
Thank you.
A lovely line to end on. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming and speaking to us about the real issues that the community are facing locally. So thank you very much, Saida.
You're welcome. Thank you. Keep it up.
So I shall take us on to the next item on the agenda, which is our Southwark 2030 strategy. It's a strategy that has been some time in the making and that we formally launched yesterday. That launch was at the Tate Modern, a building that symbolises some of the change that's happened in our borough in the past, opened 25 years ago, in what was, for those who remember, for the longer memories, was previously a very run-down bit of London. Hard to imagine now, given it is a global destination. But the plan that we've set out in Southwark 2030 is not about the buildings in the borough, it's about the people. It's a plan to improve people's lives and to ensure that whoever you are in Southwark, you can have a good life, and that's the fundamental edit. It sets out 6 key goals that we will work together in Southwark, and really importantly when I say we, my ask is that that is everyone in our borough. As a council, we will absolutely play our part, and today we are talking about our own delivery plan to deliver that strategy that we agreed back at, when was it? At the Cabinet some time ago. I forget which one it was now, a little while back. But we've rapidly been working to set out our own contribution to delivering that plan against the 6 goals in it. So those goals around making sure people can have a decent home, that children have a good start, that whoever you are, you can be safe in our borough, that you can have good health and well-being, that our economy works for everyone in our borough, and that our environment is healthy. So I'm going to hand over to the team to say a little bit more about how we've worked to produce this document, and then open up for questions from Cabinet.
To introduce myself, I'm Rona Cadenhead. I'm the Assistant Chief Executive for Strategy and Communities.
Good morning, Cabinet. I'm Mashimi Badra, Assistant Director for Strategy and Co-Design. So today this report sets out how we've come to develop the delivery plan that underpins our Southwark 2030 strategy, and our renewed commitments for how we want to ensure we can deliver on our ambition to build a fair, green and safe Southwark where everyone can lead good lives together as part of a strong community. In agreeing this delivery plan, we have an opportunity to take stock of the work that's been done since the delivery plan was first agreed back in 2022, and to reframe and refocus our ambition in line with our Southwark 2030 strategy. As you mentioned, Leader, the delivery plan is a critical component of delivering on those 6 goals of the Southwark 2030 strategy, which are agreed as the biggest priority through deep consultation with our residents and our communities about their aspirations for what the borough needs to look like in 2030. It also includes a specific goal for how we want to ensure that we are delivering a well-run council, maximising our resources to ensure we're delivering for the benefit of everyone in the borough and delivering high-quality, impactful services. Underpinning that strategy are some guiding principles that are going to inform that action and how we make sure we're delivering real impact that's delivering on our Good Lives agenda. That's making sure we're really focused on reducing inequality, breaking down any barriers to opportunity and power for those most disenfranchised in the borough. It's about how we can empower people, where we can give over more say and influence to residents and communities and co-design solutions with them to create the biggest impact. And it's also identifying our best opportunities to invest in prevention, identifying good practice that already exists in our communities and in the council, spreading and scaling those approaches so we can always be focused on helping people at the earliest point. I think what's really helpful already at Cabinet is that focus on making sure that we're measuring the outcomes of this work, and that hopefully we can do everything, whether that's looking at the performance and the quality of our services, but really bringing to life those stories both within our communities and from service users that tell us, that endorse that the strategy is actually having its impact, and that we can really see that the borough is changing for the benefit of for everyone and those furthest away at the moment from having a good life in our community. Thank you.
Let's get the microphone turned on. Thank you very much. And I think I do encourage people to read the document if you hadn't had the chance to. It is very clear in setting out both the progress we've made in playing our part in the borough as a council in delivering improved lives for people and the things we've done to do that. I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. But much more importantly, the things that we will do over the next couple of years. And we've worked hard to be really focused on the things that are going to deliver real change for people. So I'm delighted that last year we hit the milestone of starting our 3,000th new council home in the borough. We set our commitment to, of course, finish building those homes and to bring forward the next phase of new council homes, as well as new key worker homes, new community land trust, a new much improved homelessness service, real practical work. Our investment in our existing council homes, even more importantly, a quarter of our residents live in one of our council homes. It is, of course, important to have a home that you can afford, that's got a fair rent and a long-term tenancy, but it's got to be a healthy home. So it sets out our commitment around the investment we're making over £250 million over the next 3 years, invested in upgrading those homes. It sets out our commitments on employment as well, and of a fantastic milestone hit last year. I think we hit our 6,200th, I think I'm right, person lifted up to the London living wage in the borough. A huge practical difference, changing people's income, money in their pockets. But we set our commitments to go much further, doubling the number of London living wage employers, to continue extending our mental health support that we talked about earlier, so that we have mental health support available in all of our schools. We've made big progress on that. We want to go further, but also to make a big investment in special educational needs and disability services, an issue that our community has spoken to us loud and clear about, extra specialist provision across the borough, whether you're at school age or indeed at preschool age as well, and improving the quality of care as well, continuing to roll out our residential care charter, so it covers all care homes in the borough. We've got up to, I think, 77% covered so far, of beds covered so far, and we need to get the final ones done as well. There's much more besides. I can't do justice to listing it all now, but it sets out action across all of those goals. And really importantly, this is the defining document for the council to focus us on playing our part in delivering change. Although I must also say, of course, we can't do those things on our own. And we know that the delivery of whether that's that mental health support, working with our schools and community groups, whether it's that special educational needs provision, whether it's the improvements to our parks and our homes, all of these things are things that we want to do and need to do hand in hand with our community and local businesses as well. So we look forward to working with you on all of that. I will open it up to any comments, questions that Cabinet members would like to make. I'm going to start with Jasmine and then Eva.
Yes, I mean, I just wanted to try not to speak for too long, but it's very exciting. I think really a part of this and the amazing work that you have, helped us to do is that reflects, that we are definitely a borough for children. 96% good and outstanding schools, our expansion of free school meals, from primary right to secondary for children who need it, mental health support you've already mentioned, but our unwavering commitment to, we're already ahead of many boroughs, but we won't stop until we're supporting everyone that needs it. I could go on, but I just wanted a couple of things I thought you might want to say something to Cabinet about, is that we have, we've put evidence to the Child Poverty Commission, so we're just pressing the send button on that, and I wanted to thank both of you for all your work on that. But last but not least, we're getting ready to put out, we're just finishing it now, our evidence to the special education needs and disability work that one of our MPs, Helen Hayes, is doing as her she's got the Commission for Education. So I think really we've already said in Southwark 2030 that we want a revolution in special education needs and or disabilities. And I just think, thanks to your help, we're really hitting the ground running. So I just wondered if you wanted to say anything about those two pieces of work. Thank you.
I shall take a round of questions and comments and then come back to you. Evelyn.
Thank you, and I also want to thank you for this piece of work, because I think that most importantly that we started with our goals and guiding principles by talking to our residents, and I think that is the most important thing. But I think it's important for me to address an observation, and I know I've addressed this with the leader and yourselves, about the lack of explicitly mention older people, and I think there's some concerns that has been raised. What I want to do is reassure our communities that the well-being of our older residents is paramount to us and is very important. I want Southwark to be a place whereby residents can grow in place. What does that mean? Whether you are a young person, a working age, or older person, that this is the place actually that you can live your best life and you are supported to be able to do so. So this is our goal, to create a community whereby regardless of age, you can thrive. So I think my question to you, can you reassure our residents that in future, I would say, updates, that this will be visibly addressed?
Let me keep coming around. I've got Portia and then Steph.
Thank you very much for this wonderful piece of work. I'll say I'm very happy to have a brief that basically spans most of the goals, especially 2, 5, 6, and 7. But I will say the most important goal for me, and I think for the residents, is a well-run council. To know that a resident can call the repair service and get their repairs fixed quickly. To know that a resident can someone can move into the borough and get a good school. That is what is important for them. And to know that they can go into their parks and they are clean and they are well run and they are easily accessible to everybody, that children are able to access playgrounds. A well-run council is one of the most important things is the most important thing for our resident, and I just wanted to reassure our residents that that work has already begun. We've got Councillor Ennin that works with community safety and is basically working with every single cabinet member to make sure that we are held to account about what we are doing, what I am doing in parks in terms of ASB, what we're trying to do for safety for our women in our parks, trying to make sure that we are working with housing and playgrounds are easily accessible for young people in urbanized areas, and making sure that those green spaces are clean and they are safe for them, because that is how they have a good start to life. So I just wanted to reassure the residents that we are doing our best, and this work has begun way before we even started Southwark 2030 strategy planning. Strategies are great. They're great for organizations. They're great for fundraisers so that they can align themselves with what we are trying to achieve. But I think a well-run council is a goal that we need to make sure that we are continuing to achieve for our residents.
Very well said. Thank you. Steph.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to all the voluntary community sector organisations who've played a massive part in getting us where we are with Southwark 2030. I think we accept this isn't just a council-owned document. It's for everyone. It's for our residents. It's for the voluntary sector. And I think the way it's been embraced by the voluntary and community sector has been absolutely amazing. You can hear their voice throughout this as well. So I suppose for me, it's really making sure that we continue to engage, we continue to listen. I think we've heard from the 2 deputations today about how important that is and the amazing things that are being done in communities by people who do volunteer, and we should never take that for granted. But I think if Southwark 2030 is truly going to be a success, and as Nicholas said, what do we say in 2030? What are those stories? Where are those opportunities? We really have to continue to engage with our voluntary organisations as well.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to come back and respond to this, it's worth saying one of the specific commitments in here is to develop a voluntary sector strategy responding directly to the state of this voluntary sector report that has been put together, and its 3 themes around funding, buildings and equality. Yes? Yes. And on the, I really welcome your answer on the question about older people. I think it's also important to say that in the engagement that led to this strategy, there were some big clear asks that did come back from older people around the borough being safer, around the cost of living, and what was the other one that's at the top of my mind? It'll come back to me in a moment, but yeah, if you could respond to the questions.
Thank you. Just coming
and around the quality of care as well, obviously.
Coming back to Councillor Ali's point, absolutely, I think that we have so much to say on how we're leading the way, really, in thinking about how we can work as one council to tackling big challenges, big complex challenges like child poverty and special educational needs. Just to talk a little bit about child poverty, obviously we talked about the 10 years of primary free school meals, and we know that's had a huge preventative impact, and not just in reducing the stigma around accessing free school meals because it's a universal offer that removes that barrier, but we can also see over that time that that's had a huge impact on closing the gap around educational attainment for children on free school meals and their peers. But we do know that there's still so much more to do. 38% of children live in poverty in Southwark. We know that there are some policy opportunities that could come forward through the government's response to the child poverty strategy that will be of great benefit for Southwark residents and for their children. And it's really important that we don't just celebrate what we're doing already, but we really focus on telling the Southwark story about what we're already doing really well to make sure that children, no matter their background or whether they're living with a special educational need or disability, that we're already doing everything that we can to offer them a good life, but we need to be working close at hand with partners in Southwark, but also with national stakeholders as well to make sure we're getting the best opportunities for those young people.
Thank you.
And to come back to Councillor Couto on the older residents. So as the leader reflected, what was important to older residents in Southwark were safety, were good homes, were opportunities to thrive and live a good life. And I think we'd absolutely want to keep reflecting on, are we still meeting the needs of all of our residents? So yesterday at the 2030 launch, I spoke to Stephen from Southwark Pensioners. I'm going to see him next week, because what we've set out here is an adaptable plan. It's not a plan that's going to be set in stone. It's a plan that must adapt and meet needs as needs change. So we'll absolutely keep that open and make sure that we are absolutely still reflecting and meeting the needs of all of our population. Again, so moving on to the well-run council piece. This is something, if you were in officer meetings, that the Chief Executive is exceptionally clear about. We cannot serve our residents and make an impact on poverty, on inequality, and all of those things if our core services are not meeting the needs of our residents and if they're not as good as they can possibly be. So that is something that is a drumbeat right throughout the council, and how we can carry on doing that as efficiently and effectively as possible, and how we can transform our services to be as modern as possible and as efficient and as possible, and absolutely focused and designed around the needs of our residents. So a drumbeat that runs through everything that officers do and every conversation that we have with Althea. And then lastly, so there are 4 principles set out in the delivery plan, and they are very much about working in partnership. So reflecting yesterday with the voluntary sector, they are so much closer to many of our communities and many of our places than we could ever be, because actually they're a very trusted partner in our communities, as we've seen already this morning with the deputations. So we're going to work very closely with the voluntary sector. We want to far more enable engagement to come through our voluntary sector, not just directly with the council. And again, talking earlier about lived experience, informing some of our decision making and informing the insight that we have, and understanding whether we're having an impact or not. It's very important to harness the voices that are coming through our voluntary sector, and we're going to look for more imaginative and simpler ways to do that and to make sure that we're delivering.
Thank you, Kieran, and thank you both. I know there's a lot of work that's gone into this so far, and a really important piece of work for the council. I think I wanted to touch on goal 4, which is around a kind of a strong and fair economy, and the kind of underlying theme, which is to make sure everyone benefits from economic growth in Southwark. I think a lot of the goals, all of them in fact, we can't deliver on our own as a council. It will require partnership with people across the borough. And I think when we talk about opening up opportunities for local people, if I sort of touch on the point that Nicholas made earlier on, actually we've done quite a lot as a council in terms of apprenticeships, training opportunities. You look at the things that we deliver through Southwark Works. But there is certainly still a sentiment amongst people, which Nicholas touched on earlier, that there's loads of very good opportunities for people around them, but they don't feel like they can access them. And so I think my question really is around the reflection piece that you touched on Rona, because I think we need to make sure that is an external facing exercise rather than an internal one within the council. And I think I suppose my question really is how do we how do we sense check how this is being delivered with how people feel in the community, rather than just by the kind of facts and the numbers that we can measure in the council?
Yeah, numbers can either provide comfort or horror, and actually they don't tell the stories of people's lives. So, for instance, you know, we know through the work that the local economy team have done that 6,000 people have had a pay rise to London living wage levels. That is wonderful. You know, we can't deny that. What we don't properly understand is the impact that that's had on individual families' lives, whether that has taken them entirely out of poverty, or whether the complexity of their housing need, the complexity of their childcare needs, what that broader impact is. So the aim around the outcomes framework is absolutely to focus on and celebrate the big numbers like that, or to make sure they're all going in the right direction, but to properly understand the complexity that sits underneath that to inform the development of policy and strategy.
Thank you. And of course, what's really important there is that we are keep looking and understanding and being open to the fact that whilst I am very confident we've set out the right actions for the right reasons that will have real impact, but we need to check, are they having the impact we expected? Are they really changing lives in the way we went to? And if some things, with all the goodwill that we have not quite panned out the way we expected, you know, we need to change course again and refocus on the things that are actually going to change lives. Councillor Koto and I were just reminding each other, so I think 2 cabinets ago we had, or was it 3, we had a very powerful deputation come to us again to talk about the need for quality toilet provision in the borough that's accessible to all. So actually we'd like to add in an action under the good health and wellbeing theme, under the action area about those with care needs and carers, to deliver a accessible toilets action plan for the borough that ensures that they're accessible right across Southwark, something we've already committed to. So if we could add that in to the document. Are there any other questions that people have, comments people want? Yes, so I think I have Helen first and then Natasha.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it was really exciting to be at the launch yesterday. We had so many really inspiring contributions. Councillor Williams has already mentioned there are a couple of things in my portfolio area which have been added or changed, and I suppose just a few things to highlight on that. We have included the commitment to work in partnership with Southwark Pensioners Centre within the new document to deliver a new home for them in the borough, which is really exciting. And we've also kind of targeted our commitments around key worker homes on really delivering the new pilot that's being brought forward in Bermondsey, which again is making progress and is really exciting. One of the most important additions, again, as Councillor Williams mentioned, is the work that's going to be taking place to redesign the homelessness service, with a real focus on making that accessible and integration of services as well. So that's going to be a really important piece of work over the coming months. I suppose my question actually is on the principles of Southwark 2030, because actually these are the things that cut across everything, reducing inequality, being people-powered, investing in prevention. Those are things which actually I find really exciting, because those are things that can be like our guiding stars and help us as we make decisions to know that we're going in the right direction. Do you have any thoughts about kind of how we integrate those principles? Really, I mean, it's a big question, I know, but across everything we do to ensure that we're really kind of making sure that we're taking account of those principles in all of our decision making and operations.
So it's funnily enough, so the earlier speaker mentioned the theory of change, and Winnie yesterday, the chair of Community Southwark, mentioned the theory of change, and actually really I think that our theory of change towards 2030 is really concentrating on those 3 principles, because we know if we don't reduce inequality, there is no good housing available in London. We know that if we don't make sure that actually we're investing in as early help as possible in prevention, you know, we want people to live good lives. We don't want to try and fix people's lives once they've deteriorated for a number of reasons. So they will be absolutely underpinning of all of the goals. I think we want to make them as cross-cutting as possible, because, you know, just focusing on housing doesn't do any good if we don't have a good job, if you're not healthy, if you're all of those things. So we want them to be absolutely guiding principles. We want them to form our theory of change towards 2030. And I think constantly we want to check in on the work that we're doing and thinking, are we having an impact on those 3 areas? So it is a complex and a big question, but they absolutely need to be the guiding light. And as I say, just thinking more about the speaker and thinking more about Winnie yesterday. They are the theory of change. If we can crack those, then we crack better lives for everyone.
Natasha.
Thank you. Mine's really a statement about a safer Southwark and the amount of work that's already gone into engaging with our residents to find out how they're feeling across the borough. You talked about co-design and solution and investing in prevention. At the heart of some of the work that we're doing at the moment, I've been going around engaging with residents to understand their experiences. Overall, we're getting some positive feedback about our parks, but then on our council estates in other areas, our residents are telling us that they would like a change. So I just want to understand how we can better engage with our residents through the Southwark 2030 principles in light of some of the disproportionalities that we see across our borough. Thank you.
Absolutely, I think that's going to be integral. And I think one of the things that we will first need to do is really understand where we're already doing that engagement. And, you know, we've been talking today a lot about how the voluntary community sector are trusted partners. And I think that they will be a really integral part of creating those safe spaces or brokering those opportunities to think deeply on topics, whether it's access to affordable housing, whether it's community safety, whether it's access to good employment. Where are we already doing that engagement, and who are we hearing from and who are we not hearing from, and how can we use the spaces that already exist to make sure that we're not just necessarily consulting and engaging, but moving that conversation to the earliest possible point with residents. So we're really making sure that we're understanding the problems and handing over as much opportunity to communities to say, these are the problems as I understand them, these are the solutions I'd like to see. How can we make this something that's financially sustainable and efficient and actually delivers impact? And I think the best starting point would be to spend some time trying to understand the landscape of where we're already doing that engagement and building from that to really identify those opportunities for better co-production and co-design.
Well, thank you very much. And there's a huge amount of work to update this plan. I want to say particularly thank you to you for the work you've done and your wider team have done, but actually thank you to officers right across the council who've been working to make sure we're focused as an organisation on the right things. I very much echo your points, Portia. The seventh goal in this plan, which is set, in addition, the Southwark 2030 strategy is for our whole borough, sets out those 6 goals. The 7th one in here, which is about us being a well-run council, is fundamentally important. It sets out very specific commitments on the things that matter to people, having a decent call centre when you need to phone us up, improving that around being able to do more things online whenever it suits you, to book a service, have it arranged for you, improving our complaints service, etc. Making sure that the basics of the council, the value for money that we achieve for you are clear for everyone. And there is lots of work in here that is a continuation of really important work we're doing, building council homes more than any other council in the country, but there are also some areas where there's a big step change in the additional work we want to do. Work around safety, for example, is one of those where we've heard just how important that is to our community. So the proof obviously is delivery, and that's what we now need to move on to. But with that one amendment to the document around the toilet action plan, can we agree the strategy, yes, the delivery plan, that's the right phrase. Can we agree? Agreed. Thank you. Okay, I should take us on to the next item on the agenda, which is the budget. Steph.
Thank you. So I'm really pleased to come to Cabinet to say that we have a balanced budget for the next financial year for 2025-26. I think, as people may know, we agreed a 3-year budget last year, very heavily predated on the fact that we would have that strategic planning to look at our finances across a 3-year period, rather than doing a 1-year budget each time and go into departments and say, please find us some savings, please find us some efficiencies around that. When I came to Cabinet in December, we were looking at a £4 million gap for 25-26, and for the following year, 26-27, £7 million. We felt that we could bridge the bulk of that gap through our Future Southwark Transformation Programme, so looking at around £3 million worth of savings coming out of that for next year, and £7 million the year after, which left a gap of £1 million for each year. We got the provisional settlement just before Christmas, and it was clear from that provisional settlement that actually we were able to set a balanced budget. The final settlement was announced yesterday. It just has to be agreed by the House of Commons, the overall around that, on that. But in terms of where we are with the final settlement, it's very much the same as where we were with the provisional settlements, and no sort of no real news that comes out of that as well. I think what's really clear, though, from the government, and from the new Labour government, but we're seeing now, is a real focus around prevention. I think we've always said, and we've always been really realistic about the fact that despite a change of government, there wouldn't be a lot more money coming into the system because of where we are in terms of the country as a whole, the £22 billion gap within the economy and the finances. We always knew there wouldn't be a lot of new money coming back into local government. However, that said, the focuses and the priorities are very much geared up to prevention and very much aligned to our priorities as well within that. So we've seen more money going into children's social care, around £2 million extra around that. We've seen some money going into adult social care, just under £2.5 million. And really importantly, we've seen an increase in the homelessness prevention grant of just under 3.2 million around that. As we know, temporary accommodation and the costs of temporary accommodation, homelessness, is the biggest pressure we see on our budget, so it's really welcome to see that. Part of that settlement and the homelessness prevention grant was the fact that 49% that would be ring-fenced towards prevention and staff costs, which means 51% we have the flexibility to be able to look at things over and above prevention around that. And I know that Councillor Dennis is very much looking at how we can best utilise that funding, but it is very much welcomed around that. Also really key is the government have announced they want to move away from one-year settlements and they want to move to multi-year settlements. So we're expecting next December and to announce the settlements earlier than they have been in the past. So we're hoping to get a 3-year settlement towards the end of this year to enable us to be able to plan a lot more strategically, allow councils to plan a lot more strategically around that. That's going out to consultation later this year, and obviously we and London councils and the Local Government Association will make representations and comments around that. But I think, you know, having the stability around a multi-year settlement will help us as a council to be able to look at our strategic, to build it in actually with Southwark 2030 and what those priorities are. As always, we've had our scrutiny in a day with overview scrutiny. I know that Councillor Wingfield is here and would like to take say some words later. I think our budget process is much strengthened by our scrutiny process. I think we have a very in-depth scrutiny process. The fact that, you know, and it's a cross-party scrutiny, it is strengthened by that, and I really value that, not grilling, it's not a grid, I thought it went really well this year around, but that real look under the spotlight look of our budget, are we making the things that are best for our residents around that, and also that focus on climate and equalities around that as well. For the first time we've done a climate budget. We've always looked and made a commitment to look at the impact of the climate on the budget, but this year we've done a discrete climate budget which actually looks at finances in a whole, not just the revenue but capital, which is where the biggest things come out of that as well on it. We've been to multiple forums to speak to people about it as well, but the real thing I end here is that we, despite the challenges, and it is always challenging to agree a balanced budget, today I'm recommending a balanced budget to go to Council Assembly at the end of this month.
Thank you, Steph. Can I invite Ian up now? And it would be good to hear the feedback from scrutiny before we move into the wider conversation, and I will come back to the finance team. So Councillor Wingfield. And Councillor Wingfield is our chair of our Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you, Chair. And can I begin by saying how relieved I am you agreed the review of the toilet provision within the borough. First of all, can I thank you for inviting me here to speak this morning on the OS recommendations. I'd like to echo your words at the beginning, Chair, if I may, that what a wonderful facility this is, and I know how much the 3 ward councillors have devoted in support for it to thrive, and particularly Nicholas himself. So my thanks too. And also thanks to you, Chair, for such a successful launch yesterday with the 2030 vision, and how inspirational it was, I found, with the contributions from everybody on the day. So that was a really great event. Moving on to the OS recommendations, as you know, Chair, we had the 3-year budget in place, so we concentrated on those areas of overspend rather than going through a budget line by line as we traditionally done before. So we didn't have the pleasure of interviewing all the cabinet members. I apologise for that. Perhaps next year we'll make up for it. But I'd like to thank you and Councillor Crine in particular, but also Councillor King and Councillor Dennis and who was the other one? Oh, Councillor Ali, of course. How could I forget? So as I say, we went presented with the usual budget data to crawl through line by line, but so most of the eventual recommendations were really on a cross-party basis, as you mentioned, Chair. We're really concerned with policy around the budget, if I could put it that way, rather than specific financial recommendations as such. And as Councillor Crine said before, many of the recommendations that came through from OSC were already in place to a degree, and I know the committee remains assured that she'll follow through on those particular recommendations. We're grateful for yourself, Chair, and Councillor Crine coming at the beginning of the meeting to lay out the background to the budget, which I think was extremely important for members to understand that, and then allowing the committee to deep dive a bit more into those specific areas of overspend with the appropriate cabinet members. As you see, our recommendations are on pages 207 to 209, and specifically I just want to refer to a couple of them, if I may. Firstly, recommendations 4 and 5. This concerns rent controls in the sort of private sector, and it wasn't really suggested as a policy for the council to adopt. It was more a consideration that it might be something that the council could raise with London councils when it lobbies central government as another string in their bow when they're making the arguments about the housing pressure within the capital. And then similarly with the equality impact of the budget, Councillor Crine had already, the final recommendation, Councillor Crine had already agreed that she would be monitoring the impact not just of this budget but also last year's budget, and equality is always first in front of those considerations, so we remain assured about that too. I think the other two areas, and they've already been commented on to a certain degree, but recommendation 3 concerning temporary accommodation and recommendation 6 concerning no recourse to public funds. I mean, I don't have to be convinced. I know how concerned you are as a cabinet collectively and individually about these areas, and we can only sort of re-emphasize the importance of keeping these budgets under control, and so therefore we'd welcome any measures that you may suggest to mitigate that moving forward. So thank you, and thank the cabinet once again, Chair. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you again from me for the work that OSC do every year, but in detail going through the budget to make it stronger, and you always do make it stronger, so thank you very much for that work. Steph, would you like to respond directly to some of those points?
So first of all, I think the set of recommendations that are here are a really great set of recommendations. I think really do chime in with what happened at the scrutiny meeting and really reflect that. I think you had a really hard job to look at because there were a whole string of recommendations that were brought to the committee that actually were felt probably weren't the right recommendations for us. And I think we've landed on the ones that that are there. I think, you know, as you already said, Councillor Winfield, some of those are already in train, and we will be looking at those, and we've started the work on those, so that actually want to reassure you and the committee that's already within the process, and we are working around those. In terms of the equalities impact, absolutely, I think we've always made a commitment that we would review the impact in the summer of last year's budget and then at the end of the 3-year budget around that. By setting a 3-year budget, that does allow us to be more flexible around it as well. And absolutely really welcome overview and scrutiny to look at that and scrutinise that as part of the ongoing budget process. I think it's really important that we don't just look at the budget this time of year, it's an ongoing thing. So as soon as we've done that and we're working through that, we'll hopefully get you involved in looking at that as well. In terms of the rent control, yeah, that is one that isn't within our gift. Around that, and to be honest, at this moment in time, the central government it's not on their agenda. However, you know, if it ever does and it comes, we can push back, because we do know the impact that obviously high rents are having on temporary accommodation and our budget around, but also around actually finding suitable properties for people to live within the borough or near to the borough as well around that. So I just want to give my commitment, but we've taken all these recommendations. I hope you are sort of happy and you're going to be happy with the responses around that, and it's something we'll continue to develop and bring back around that as well. But I do think, you know, those 8 recommendations are very welcomed, so thank you.
Questions people had on that, and I think really helpful. I know the points you highlight about the ever-increasing cost of temporary accommodation and also of no-recourse public funds for the same reasons, the cost of providing accommodation for people in the city are the things that I think worry us most around this table about the financial pressures we're now facing. And in London, across the whole city, councils are now spending £4 million a day on temporary accommodation. That's a number that is going up month on month on month. Actually, it's probably more than that now. That's a figure from a couple of months ago. And we need a long-term solution to that. It simply isn't financially viable, but it's not the right thing for people's lives to be feeling that their life's being put on hold, living in something that is at a temporary home rather than a long-term home. And that's why we're determined to build so many new council homes, all other kinds of affordable homes for people. But it's also why we're working so hard with the government to look at those solutions in the short term as well. Clive, is there anything on the budget that you would add to the points that have been set out so far? And do introduce yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Clive Pelfman, Strategic Director for Resources. I guess this is a report of a couple of 100 pages, isn't it? But it represents many more 100 hours hard work, not just by the colleagues to my left, but also the wider finance team, all our budget holders, our senior office team, and also our councillors, those who sit around this table, but also overview and scrutiny as well. We are a local authority. Local authority financial challenges are well documented up and down the country. So in a way, the hard work that's been done over the last couple of years to set ourselves a 3-year approach has created a bit of capacity for us to use this as a budget in which we invest. It invests in our statutory objectives, it invests on the outcomes that you've just discussed in the previous agenda item, and under the banner of a well-run council, it also outlines a path to not only balancing the budget starting the 1st of April, it also outlines the plan for the following year's budget as well, taking us up to 2027. That said, it's not unique, not without its challenges. Temporary accommodation you've also touched on. Also, it talks about challenges within our housing revenue account, which have been well documented and was subject to a more detailed report last month, where of course we do have our financial challenges, and work will continue throughout the course of the year. But we are alert to those risks. We've got a plan for those risks, and it demonstrates we've got grip around those risks. So in many ways, within the local authority context, it's quite a positive report. You won't find many of those up and down the country this month. There aren't large numbers of additional savings being pulled out this year, but there is a focus on delivering what you've agreed in previous years. And by going through that approach, it creates the capacity in enabling us to do so. I've always held the view it's the easy part of the process, isn't it, to write the budget. The hard work starts on the 1st of April in terms of delivering it.
Points very well made, and I think it's absolutely right that there's a huge focus in here in increasing the value for money for council, particularly for our buildings, our contracting. I know that work is hard to do. It's one thing to write it down. It's important that we get it right and deliver it. So I again want to say a huge thanks for those who've done all the work to get us to a balanced budget, but also for all the work that will be done to deliver these improvements of value for money for our residents, so we can invest the money we do have in the right services against the goals that we've agreed with our community. And I think it's also worth just reflecting on, I think, Clive, we're now up to 7 authorities across London accessing exceptional financial support. And 14 years of austerity has pushed councils across the country over the edge. And whilst it's welcome that, very welcome that this year local government has of all departments, seen the biggest percentage increase in funding. It's going to take time to rebuild after 14 years of erosion of public services. And of course, it's not just councils that are under financial pressure from all of that austerity. It's the NHS, it's policing, it's the courts. It's all parts of public service that have been eroded. And getting back there will be not a quick road. On this report, we are recommending it to go forward to Council Assembly, where it's formally approved. So can we agree the recommendations here to do that? Agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. I'll take us to item 10, which is the admission arrangements for community primary schools. Jasmine.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm just being joined by our Director of Children's Services and team. So just give them a chance to get up here. So obviously people will know Alistair, Neil and Rick. So I'll just introduce and then we can hear from the experts. So this is a bit of business. The Council, as you know, has a statutory duty to ensure its admission arrangements are clear, fair and compliant with statutory guidance, Schools Admission Code. So really this report sets out the proposed admission arrangements for Southwark Primary School for September 2026. Okay, the key thing, I mean you're familiar with all of this, but the key thing that I need you to agree or consider is really on page 30, paragraph 24. So that is the reduction of pupil admission numbers in 3 of our primary schools. So for Crawford, they are basically a reduction from 60 to 30. Ivydale, a reduction from 90 to 60. And Goodridge, from 90, proposed 60. So we've been working closely with all of the schools the PANS reduction, really just as a reminder, but you have to see it in context of the falling rolls and the steep demographic change that we have seen in London, but now everywhere really. I mean, in London in particular, 35% of families are leaving London. We've been discussing all of those issues, including as we were discussing at the beginning when Nicholas was speaking to us, the high cost of housing costs, but also we've seen a birth rate drop by 40%, which is staggering really. Now, I want to assure the Cabinet that the proposed changes in pupil admission number reductions are carried out in the spirit of keeping education strong. You know, the document that you're all familiar with, the strategy and the plan, which has stood us in good stead really. I mean, we've been able to we know that we have 96% good and outstanding schools, and yet we've had this, demographic shock, and we've been able to continue to deliver that precisely by trying to get ahead of, the demographic shocks. So really, I wanted to say we've had good consultation, and at Ivydale, 90% of the stakeholders were in favour of the plan reduction. At Goodridge, 93%, and at Crawford, 100%. So, that really shows the amazing work that the people in front of us have been doing really to make sure that everyone is on board, understands it, and, play their part in keeping education strong really. There's more to say, but if you've got any questions, we can open it up. And also, any comments from our panel really?
Alistair, is there anything you'd like to add, and do introduce yourself?
I'm going to add some brief comments, thank you. Firstly, to say that this is, while it may seem relatively straightforward, it's important that as a council and a public body we demonstrate transparency for our decision making, and that's why we're here today. All 3 of the schools where there's a proposed reduction approached us, they initiated that process, and I think it demonstrates how we work together with the schools and our communities to get the system right. I also want to just note there's a lot of other detail in the report, especially the appendices. A huge amount of work goes on to consider any decision about schools, where our pupils are, their different needs, the different protected characteristics. Colleagues on my right, particularly Rick, who sits on the far right there, is very immersed in the detail of each of these aspects and each school embedded in a community, you know, recognising we're here in a community in Old Kent Road today. We do acknowledge that very much, and I think that detail is in the report, even if only the decisions that we're asking Cabinet to make today are relatively straightforward. There was a couple of technical aspects around consultation I just want to invite Neil to address, and then we can cease talking.
Hello, I'm Neil Gordon-Orr, Assistant Director for Education Access. Appendix 4 gives details of the consultation on the PAM reductions at the 3 schools. It was conducted online on the Council's consultation hub. At Ivydale School, where potentially it could have been more contentious because it does involve them giving up the use of one of their buildings, we did also have a big public meeting there as well as part of the consultation. And as Council Halley reported, the response to the consultation was positive in terms of taking forward the PAM reductions. But I have noticed a version control error, for which I apologise, in Appendix 4, where it refers to responses that had been received as at 1 p.m. on the deadline date. This was due to the submission date for the early version of the paper. I can confirm that there were no further responses after that deadline date. The consultation actually ran until midnight, so the reported responses in that appendix do reflect the full range of responses that were received during the consultation.
Thank you. I know this is very sensitive work. And sometimes not, you know, if there are less children applying to a school than the places, that's relatively straightforward. You know, children can still get a place. I know for Ivydale in particular, they're currently a 2-site school, and this is a change for them. So if you could just set out for us the work we're doing to make sure that would be a seamless transition for the children, families who are using that school.
Well, essentially there is space on the older Bellwood site to have all the children who are currently at the school, but it requires some work to be undertaken on that site to make it suitable. So that's in the planning stage. There's consultation going on with the school and with our capital programme board around that. There's a meeting actually happening at the school on I think it's the 25th of February to talk through those plans in more detail. Alongside that, there will be a consultation on the plans for the future of that site, which essentially involve relocating an existing special school, primary special school, onto the Inverton Road site. So there'll be a separate consultation on that, which is due to be launched in the next month, I believe.
Do you mind if I just jump in? I just wanted to say, yes, I mean, the work has been second to none, really. I mean, we've all been to the school to reassure people, but there's one important point, and that is we assured people at the meeting that we were at that the new school would not take place until the refurbishment on the, on the site that's been refurbished has been complete. So I think that's a small point, but one worth that, bringing out.
A very important one. Okay, are there any other questions on this one? No, I don't think there are. So thank you very much for the work on it. In particular, thank you for that work that is being done to make both make the Ivydale site that the school we'll be moving into, the existing school we're moving into, fit for future, for those kids can continue to have a great education there, but also in making sure that the second site provides a fantastic first-rate facility for children with special educational needs in our borough as well. You know, a win on both sides when we get that right. So thank you very much for our work getting that right. Can we move on to agree the recommendations on this one then?
Yes.
Yep. Agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have one more report today. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, this one is one that we'll make the decision in closed session, which we'll explain the reasons for that in a second. But if we could have initial discussion about it. So Helen, if you want to introduce, and I think Steve and team are coming forward, yes, as well. Helen.
Thank you very much. We've talked a lot about the Old Kent Road. It's good to be bringing this report to Cabinet whilst here on the Old Kent Road today. So this report sets out our plans to move forward with a way of unlocking housing delivery and also hopefully a new health centre, as well as protecting the Victorian frontages on the Folgate site, which is just a bit further down south of the Old Kent Road. This is land that we purchased in 2019 and 2021 in order essentially to kind of bring forward the best possible scheme for Southwark residents. We've already received money from the Future High Streets funds for investment in the site. The proposal that we've set out in the report is to move forward with Western Homes as the developer who will build new homes for us on this site, at least 200 new homes using advanced modern methods of construction, delivering at least 50% affordable housing for the council, and also commercial space which we will retain as the council, and as I said earlier, that we hope to use to bring forward a health centre in partnership with the NHS. So I think it's a really exciting proposal. The report outlines how we got to this point. So we went through quite a rigorous process of going out to the market and speaking with a whole range of developers about what they could offer on that site. And we got down to a short list of 2. It's worth saying that Western were the only company to bring forward a general needs housing scheme. Again, we heard a bit about student earlier, and we have got a huge amount of student accommodation coming forward. One of the attractive things about this scheme is that it is general needs housing, and they are delivering against our council policies and delivering 50% affordable housing, include at least 25% social rent for us. So that was obviously a standout offer from them. I think that's probably all I would say here. We have developed a heads of terms, which is detailed in the closed report, to kind of safeguard our interests essentially as a council. And I think it's an exciting way forward for the site. There are obviously, and again, officers might want to speak to this, we will need to get vacant possession of the site. So there are conversations ongoing with some of the temporary occupiers and neighbours on that site to make sure that we progress in a sensitive and appropriate fashion. But yeah, Steve, Marcus, Thomas, I don't know if you want to add.
I would just say it's great to be in the Old Kent Road, really, when we're making a decision on a strategic site in the Old Kent Road. It was very interesting listening to Nicholas, and he highlighted the difficulties in the economics of delivering new homes, and it is extremely challenging at the moment. So get a scheme which is going to deliver 50% affordable, 25% social rent, plus a significant social infrastructure offer in terms of a new health centre, I think is a fantastic result for everybody, and we're very excited about delivering the scheme. One of the interesting elements, as Councillor Dennis highlighted, is the modern methods of construction, where Western will be using British Offsite, one of our companies, to develop, if you like, a system, panel-based system to speed up delivery, but also to make it more efficient. I've been out to see the factory. It's extremely impressive, and I'm pretty confident they can deliver a scheme which is high quality, extremely efficiently. And just the Old Kent Road generally, really, we are delivering change at pace. Under the government's definition, we're creating 2 new towns. The new town is 10,000 homes. We're doing 20,000 homes down the Old Kent Road, subject to the BLE. We're outperforming our competitors in London, Old Oak Common, Silvertown, Royal Docks, Barking Riverside in terms of speed of delivery, despite those schemes getting significant public sector funds from the GLA and central government, but fully recognises Nicholas's remarks about ensuring that change delivers for existing local residents, and we'll ensure we will do that, partly through our planning policies and Section 106s, which guarantees a certain number of jobs and training opportunities for local residents. Don't think I want to say any more.
Thank you very much. Evan.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. I can confidently speak on behalf of my ward colleagues that we are happy with this proposal. I mean, generally it's 50% affordable, and the health centre is something that we are definitely happy with. But I think my concern is with the instability of the market, and we've seen recently of developers coming back to amend the application, mainly going to students. And my concern is, and I think the question to you, how are you going to effectively work with this developer to ensure that we realise this application?
Thank you. I may pass over to my colleagues, but we have 2 controls over this site, one as landowner, but also one as planning authority. So effectively, the land interest we grant over the site will ensure that the scheme we've selected is a scheme that's going to be delivered, and it can't be split to student. So I think we have sufficient protections through both mechanisms to ensure that this is a general needs housing project. which delivers a policy-compliant, affordable offer.
Well, thank you. Really good to have that reassurance. Obviously, we've been asking you questions ahead of the meeting on exactly that. How do we make sure that we secure what we need from the scheme? Sarah.
Sorry.
You've thrown me completely.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you. The question came to me late. I'm conscious you might not be able to say much at this stage, but is there anything you can say about the potential registered provider or housing association that the developer might work with in terms of owning and managing the affordable element? Part of the reason I was asking it is there's obviously quite a lot of coverage at the moment about the viability and resilience of that sector as well as that of developers, and what kind of consideration is being given to who that RP might be, and whether there is an RP that would want those homes going forward.
A really big challenge at the moment is the RP market and the acquisition of Section 106 housing from cross-subsidy and mixed tenure projects, which is putting a significant risk on those projects, which is affecting financing rates, access to finance, lots of issues. Western are obviously very well aware of this, and they have soft market tested the affordable housing at Polegate. And they do have market interest from RPs. Nobody's signed up yet. Most of them have said they'll wait for a planning permission in place and then hopefully sign up the offer. I think it's quite a good offer for an RP. It has scale in terms of there'll be effectively 100 affordable homes plus here. So it's not a small package where we're having significant difficulties with Section 106 packages of 50 homes and less, where the RP interest is very limited at the moment.
Thank you very much. So as I said at the beginning, we're taking a decision on this one in closed session. That's so that we can give officers a clear mandate for the finances that we're prepared to put in here as they finalise the negotiations. So the Western don't know exactly what the terms of that, so they can't get a march on us. Are there any last questions on this one? No? If not, then that draws our public session to a close. I want to thank everyone who's attended today. I want to, in particular, thank the whole team at the Livesey Exchange, Nicholas, and your team for hosting us. As I said at the beginning, it is fantastic to be able to be here in a building that has happened for lots of reasons, finance that's come with the change that's happening in the area, but ultimately because the local community made it happen. And I'm very glad that the council have been able to support you in doing that. And I look forward to coming down to the opening of the second stage, which is the foundations are outside, so we can celebrate that as well. So thank you very much, everyone. We will now close. We'll have to ask everyone to leave the room for a short period while we have our closed session and we make the final decision of the day. Thank you very much, everyone. Sorry, did we agree the recommendation? No, sorry.